chat where stories unfold, diving into pages where adventures are told. From thrilling plots to tales that twist, if you love books, you can't miss this. It's the Book Chat, a brand new spin.
Hello, welcome to Book Chat. My name is Isla and I'm reading The Alchemist.
My name is Anthony Malero and I'm reading The Catcher in the Rye.
My name is Dan and I'm reading Life of Pi.
We are going to be talking about the motivation, connection, and symbols in our book. In The Alchemist, Santiago's motivation was to find his treasure and the purpose in the world. During the expedition, he learned the language of the world. He became more connected to our land.
In The Catcher in the Rye, Holden Caulfield wants to preserve the innocence of children to become more aware of the dangers of adulthood. Caulfield had experienced many obstacles and challenges when he had first became an adult.
For me, Pi's journey really forced him to face the world on his own, and it was mostly being at the sea that taught him some harsh truths and mostly courage and faith. And really, the challenges helped him become stronger, as we see at the end of the book. And they're basically all lessons that will help him, lessons that will shape him into a brave adult.
Santiago has also experienced many obstacles during his journey. There was a section in the reading that he literally had nothing left to lose. He didn't have his sheep, no money, or a home. He was lost in a country that was completely foreign. He didn't even know the language.
That actually reminds me of my book, in which in page 101, Pi says, "I must only say a word about fear. It is life's only true opponent." This quote shows how Pi isn't just confronting external things but also internal struggles.
Unlike Pi, Santiago did not give in during his hardest moments. In the book it stated, as he mused about the things, he realized that he had to choose between thinking of himself as a poor victim of a theft and as an adventurer in the quest of his treasure. "I'm an adventurer, looking for a treasure," he said to himself.
Lila, why do you think Santiago thinks of himself as a poor victim?
Well, in this certain section in the book, he's thinking himself as a poor victim because of what he went through. So he's trying to travel to find his treasure, right? That is in this pyramid, and it all came to him in a dream. Basically, while he was on this journey, which he doesn't even know if it's real or not, he's going based off what he saw in his own head. He had lost all his money, he had lost his job, and he was in a place that he didn't even know how to communicate to the people there, you know? So as most people, I feel like, me personally, if that was me, I think I would have given up at that point. Because can you imagine being in that situation? Losing absolutely everything that you have and not knowing where you are in the world, you know?
Yeah, that would probably be harsh. But I also think that if a person has nothing left to lose, then there's nothing holding them back. And if there's nothing holding you back, there's no reason for you to not keep going. So the only liable option there is to move on.
I hear what you're saying, and I feel like the alchemist had a similar thought process. In that moment when he was deciding what to do after those events occurred, he was debating between two options. Either he lets those things that happen affect him and he doesn't move on with his journey and he goes home and tries to rebuild his life and start over, or if he was going to use these things to motivate him and go after that treasure even more. After everything that happened, at least he could go after the treasure and get what he deserved.
Well, if I was in that situation, I would probably not continue going based on what happened, based on that I lost everything and not knowing of what else I can actually get back. Also, in my book, Holden actually thinks of himself as a poor victim. He constantly says in the book that he calls people phonies and people who don't feel like they're a part of the environment and background around him. He constantly thinks himself as a threat to his own environment, to New York. He feels like he is misunderstood about the society and culture around him.
How is that a motivation?
So it can be a motivation because it talks about how Holden thought of himself as a poor victim, which means that he basically like didn't care about anything, and he was basically depressed. Now this can make him think about himself and like give him a thought of what could he do and what could he make from this point and moving forward.
So basically, what you're saying is that all this negativity that he feels motivates him to want to be better.
For me, Pai's motivation was also based on like the negative things he experienced. So basically, Pai keeps a sense of faith and purpose. And even when he's facing fear and isolation, the struggles he has teach him mostly resilience to keep going. He learns how strong he is, and basically the strength helps him face life with a kind of peace, I guess, and understanding. So he realizes that even the hardest times can have something good in them, and that helped him move forward.
That actually connects to my book because this guy that was a crystal merchant, he had a dream to go to Mecca. And he had all the things that he needed to achieve this dream, but he didn't. Because like many people in the world, we are slightly afraid to chase our dreams in fear that it's not like we imagine. You know what I mean? Like you have this image in your head of what it might be, and you're scared to go after it because it might not like measure up to what you expect. As I quote, I have a conversation that Santiago had with him. It stated, "Well, why don't you go to Mecca now?" asked the boy. "Because it's the thought of Mecca that keeps me alive. That's what helps me face these days that are all the same. These mute crystals, all the shells, and lunch and dinner at that same horrible cafe. I'm afraid that if my dream is realized, I will have no reason to go on living." This quote speaks to me because many people live this way, not going after what they believe and staying trapped in their own world.
Well, Catcher in the Rye is similar in a way because in the novel, Holden actually struggles with his own life because he has to face a bunch of problems and responsibilities with his own adulthood. He mostly finds himself lost and afraid of his own future and his own life furthermore. But mostly, his own adulthood causes him to basically be stressed, which is also what the quote is also saying. And because of his stress and grief, he's just not sure if he can move forward with his own life.
Yeah, actually, the first part of your quote reminds me of Pai's religious rituals, in which he uses faith as a mental and emotional surviving tool. By keeping his religion, he shows his beliefs. His experience on the lifeboat while being stranded highlight the power of faith as a source of trying to keep going. The quote is explained on page 208, in which he says, "I practiced religious rituals, from the Hindu chanting of mantras to the Muslim call to prayer. They brought me comfort." The quote also shows the multiple religions Pai follows.
Throughout The Alchemist, there is this feel that it's a religious book as well. There's parts of it that's like showing his spirit, you know, his religious and the belief that he has, and it slides into his journey and the way that he processes it, you know, like it's almost as if he feels that there is somebody watching over him and that he is confident that he will find his treasure and his purpose in the world.
In Catcher in the Rye, Holden Caulfield said, "Life is a Game Boy. Life is a game that one plays according to the rules." And this quote basically means, it basically talks about that he thinks that some things that you do in life are unfair or cruel, but you still have to do them anyway because it all follows a set of rules.
Anthony, I feel like my quote can also connect to yours because I feel like maybe people don't go after their dreams or try to follow it because of the rules that there is in the world. Like somebody could feel obligated to take care of their families, work, pay everything they need to, and never actually take the time to plan and go after what they want. You know what I'm saying?
Now we're moving on to the symbols. So, in The Catcher in the Rye, Holden Caulfield says, "When I was all set to go, when I had my bags and all, I stood for a while next to the stairs and took a last look down the corridor. I was sort of crying, I don't know why. I put my red hunting hat on and turned the peak around to the back the way I liked it." And so this quote basically describes that he put his red hunting hat on, and in the book, every time he puts his hat on, every time he puts the red hunting hat on, it can describe a point in the book where a big event occurs. In the quote, he was leaving his own dorm room from Pensy, and he was going to another hotel in New York. And so, since he felt pretty lonely during this transition, he had to put his red hunting hat on.
In The Alchemist, the symbol that has been shown a lot in the book was the desert. It was symbolic because it was basically where all the challenges and obstacles that Santiago had occurred. It was also the place that he learned more about the language of the world and found parts of himself. I think that the desert was important because even though lots of challenges happened to Santiago there, and he spent lots of time on this journey, it was also the place that he learned most about himself and made lots of mistakes that improved who he was as a person.
Oh, actually, I was expecting you to talk about The Alchemist, which is the title of your book, since this is what I did. In page 1 of my book, Pi says, "My name is Prasin Maladur Patel, known to all as Pi Patel." I think the significance of the mathematical symbol of pi is that it's an irrational, infinite number with an infinite sequence of digits. I believe this represents something endless and unknowable. This could represent Pi's stories, which he says you have to choose since there is no clear one.
I can see why you would think I would choose the Alchemist as my symbol. He was also a very important character and did play a huge role in the book because it's literally his name in the title. But I just chose to talk about the desert because I also feel like its meaning is very important.
I like the symbol that your book has. I didn't really think about it in that way, but I can see how the pi number could relate to the story that Pi went through.
Yeah, I think that was it for our specific tools. Do you guys want to give each other's opinions on our books?
From the things that you said about The Catcher in the Rye, I feel like I'm very interested and I am intrigued to read more because you describe how Holden has this, like the way that you talk about Holden and the way that he faces his troubles throughout the entire book, it makes me want to see how he deals with it and see if I can personally connect to the way that he thinks.
Yeah, Lila, I feel like your character and Holden are pretty similar. They both dealt with the obstacles, but unlike Holden, Santiago faces them. I would love to read what your character goes through.
Dan, your book, Life of Pi, sounds very intriguing to me because it talks about how the character faces like a really big problem, and also how the character talks about how Pi deals with his own grief and how he copes with it. I feel like your character Pi sounds like a lot like Holden from Catcher in the Rye. I like how you explained his problems and how he deals with them, just like how Holden deals with his own grief and depression in The Catcher in the Rye.
Thank you for tuning in for our book chat. That is it from Lila.
Dan?
And Anthony.
Thank you for listening.